Welcome back to the channel. My name is Summer Maroki, and today I'm going to be telling you my journey into how I started to play tennis here in San Diego. Again, this kind of applies into everywhere. So if you want to get into tennis, you're not sure how, this is the video for you. Also, this is kind of going to be like a vlog or a biographic or biography. I don't even know how to say the word anymore. This kind of going to be like just basically my journey into how I started playing tennis. So make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you like, comment, share the video. Next video is going to be about the mock draft for fantasy football. Since football is about to start, I want to start doing more mock draft, and I want to record at least one of them just to show you like my thought process and everything into how I do my fantasy football draft. So that's going to be the next video. So make sure you follow, make sure you subscribe. Um, Without further ado, let's jump right into it. This is how I started playing tennis here in San Diego. So to kick it off, let's go back to the beginning. I was not born here in San Diego. I was not born here in the United States. I was born back in Iraq. And if you know anything about Iraq, you should know that tennis is not a popular sport over there. In fact, it is not a sport that you see a lot of people play. Of course, it has its own cult over there, has its people that its own following, but for the most part, tennis is not a sport that a lot of kids get into. Over there, like many of other countries in the world, the biggest sport in the world was soccer. To us, soccer meant everything. I still remember the 2007 when Iraq won the Asian Cup. It was the biggest deal ever. It was a big moment for our country, for that national team. This was their first major trophy win, I believe. So it was a big deal. But anyways, tennis was not a thing over there. However, I did know some tennis players, mainly the big names. I've known about Djokovic, I've known about Federer, Nadal, Murray, Serena, Maria Sharapova. I only know about them because every time my dad turns the news, which I hated and I still hate the news, I don't like watching the news. I look forward to the sports section because I want to hear about everything that's happening in the world of sports. Specifically in soccer. If there's like transfer news, if there is like stuff about my team, which is Barcelona, and if you're a Real Madrid fan, suck it. Um, Stuff about the national teams and stuff like that. I was mainly excited about the soccer portion of it. I didn't care about the basketball stuff. Nobody covered baseball over there. Nobody covered American football over there. And there was some tennis coverage here and there, especially during like the major Grand Slams season. There was coverage there. And of course, I hear about the big four in men's tennis. At that time, Sharapova was a pretty big tennis player. So was Serena Williams, of course, Venus Williams. Like I've known about those names. I know who they are. If you show me a picture of them, I'll probably can name them. But if you ask me like how is the sport of tennis being played, I probably could not answer you anything about it. I did not know anything about tennis except those are the players, and you have a racket and you hit a tennis ball and you're in a court and there's a net. That's about it. That was about the extent of my knowledge about tennis back in. I moved in here to the US back in 2012. I came in here around kind of like the end of the freshman year, beginning of the sophomore year, that type of thing. Um, and so, yeah, I came in here again. I wanted to just play soccer, just like I did in Iraq. However, circumstances and stuff that were happening back home did not allow me to pursue that sport. I came in here and I saw that there was a market for it, and I was hoping to get into the sport. Um, However, it was still kind of difficult to get into it, especially when you come in here. You don't really know the language very well. You're trying to learn and stuff. So it was a little bit more difficult to get into the sport. Plus, again, like I was saying, I came in at somewhat of a later age in terms of like soccer and trying to break into the sport. Um, like I said, I came in like my end of freshman year, beginning of sophomore year in high school. I forgot how old I was, but I was about like 13, 14 years old. Anyways, came in, things were, you know, kind of difficult to break in. And then I used to see this. One of my neighbors who was with me in school, and we used to like commute together. He would always go in the afternoons, like, like evening, afternoon, in the parking lot, and he would play tennis with the complex manager. and I'd always see them, but I didn't care. It was not something that like excited me. One day in the summer, I was very bored, and I just decided to go watch them. And he goes, "Hey, why don't you just come play?" I was like, "Man, I don't know anything about tennis." And he's like, "I didn't either. We're just playing for fun. You just got to get the ball over the imaginary line that we set up, and just trying to keep it in rally." I was like, "All right." So I grabbed the tennis racket and I started hitting. It felt nice. It felt good. For somebody who has never touched a tennis racket in his life, I thought I was pretty decent. I was like, hey, you know what? This is not bad. I don't know why I always avoided this sport. It looked boring to me on TV, but I was like, hey, that's not too bad. And then I just kept playing with them, throughout the summer. Um, and just kept trying and trying and trying. And then here comes the spring season, and I'm like, hey, you know what? Why don't I just go join the high school team? I asked my neighbor who was right door next to me, and she was in the women's team. I asked her, like, hey, how do I join the tennis team? And she explained to me that I got to go find the coach. She told me who the coach is, and I got to ask him, to sign up. I went to the coach, and he's like, it's kind of too late right now. Come back next year. I was like, okay, not bad. So now we're in my junior year, and I joined on time. I stopped playing tennis. I joined the team. I was nicknamed the Hammer because it's the closest thing to my name. That's what the head coach came up with on the spot while I was trying to ask for a form so that way I can join the team. So that was my nickname, and it stuck, and that is why my YouTube handles, my on TikTok, everywhere else, you'll see the name the Hammer. That's why. That's where it came from. In case you were wondering, um, we fast forward. The season starts. I'm playing. I'm practicing. I finally learned what a forehand is, what a backhand is, what a serve, what a volley is. I learned the basic shots. I did not learn how to hit them properly, but I learned what they are. I know how to recognize them now. I was playing with my old busted racket that was just so ancient. The strings were worn out. The frame was just extremely damaged, and my overgrip was an electrical tape because I did not know the difference between a regular tape or what's an overgrip compared to just an electrical tape. So I had an electrical tape on there. That's how the racket came to me. That's how it was handed to me, and it was hilarious because when I showed my coach when he was teaching me, he looked at it. He's like, "How are you playing with this? This feels illegal." He took it off, put an overgrip from him, and handed it to me, and it immediately felt different. I was like, "Oh my god, this actually feels nice. It feels like I can actually hold it in my hand, and it's not going to cause me blisters or I don't know some weird shit the electrical tape was doing to my hand." Um, and then we play the first game of the season. Now, if you're not familiar with the high school system, at least here, I don't know how it is like everywhere else in the U.S. I would like to assume it's the same, but at least that's how it is here. You have a varsity team and you have a JV team. The varsity team is limited to 9 players. Of course, you can always substitute people in from JV, but for the most part, you have to have a minimum of 9 players in order to have a team. Actually, that's not true. I think the minimum is like 5 or 6 in order to have a tennis team, um, but 9 minimum to have like a full lineup. So the way you play is you have your number one doubles, number one, uh, number two, and number three, and same thing for the singles. So that's why the players add up to 9. And you just play. So number one plays against number one, and then goes like 2-3 or 3-2, depending on how they do the rotation. Each school does it differently. But basically, if you're a player, you get to play 3 sets. That's the bottom line. Sometimes, again, depending on substitutions and stuff like that, you might be subbed out after playing 1 set. But that's essentially the thing. You're trying to win as many sets as you can. I think the total was like 18 sets between all the was it 18 sets? I forgot how many sets in total, but that was like the amount, like basically if you win more than 9 sets, you pretty much won the day as a school. Regardless, like even if you win like a 10-8, you won. At 9-9, you play a tiebreaker. I forgot how they do the tiebreakers, but anyways, that's not that important. So I was in the JV when I first started. Of course, again, I don't know how to play tennis, and I didn't even know the rules. Like at that point, the coaches sent me to the game, and I was not aware of what the rules were. I start playing against this guy, and we're doing a fast four. I serve, and my ball was in the wrong box. And he was like, "All right." He's like, "That was out." I thought I won the point. I was like, "You didn't get it." I started moving on. He's like, "No, no." He's like, "It's you still have a second serve." I was like, "What?" I was like, "Why?" He goes, "Well, you need to make it in this box." I was like, "What?" And so he explained the rules to me. Mind you, he was very nice about it. He wasn't, being a douche about it or anything. So he explained the rules to me. And at that point, I was like, I get it now. That was the moment where I learned how to play tennis and I learned all the rules, which was funny because an opponent taught me that. Of course, I went to lose 0-4, um, but I learned how to play tennis that day on the spot. So that was an experience. But anyways, go on my entire first year. I spent it all in JV. I played a couple matches in varsity, um, but I spent most of it in JV. I did climb up the ranks in JV. I did start at the very bottom of the pecking order, and then by the end of the season, I was basically playing at the top spot in JV. I ended the entire year having won zero total sets, and our school was not very popular when it comes to like winning tennis stuff. So yeah, it was pretty common to have that type of performance. So yeah, end up the entire season with 0 sets won, and I was sitting in the banquet, and I remember I had a soccer match after the banquet for like this league that we were doing, and I remember I was sitting there, and the coaches were like handing out awards, and I was like, you know what? I want one of those awards. So I was like, I'm gonna come back next year and I'm gonna win an award. So now we're in the summer of my senior year, or like heading into my senior year, and I remember I was trying to take tennis seriously. So I'm at the courts almost every day of the summer. I'm practicing against the walls. I'm trying to outwork on my trying to figure out how to serve properly. I was trying to drag my friend to come play with me tennis, the one that I convinced to join with me in my junior year. I was just like trying out different ways. I was just trying to get more people. I was trying to play more. I was trying to get into the sport. Um, and I remember there's this one random guy that gave me a couple tips when I was playing, rallying against the wall, and it stuck with me. And then here comes the senior year. I sign up, I join, and that random guy turns out to be the head coach for that season. I say for that season because he only lasted one season. Uh, and the advice that he gave me worked out pretty well because I came into the season, and of course, I had the expectations for myself that I'm going to be in varsity because I was like, I am not going to play another year in JV. I could have, but I was like, I think it's time for me to move up to the varsity. And then they did like some ladder games and stuff like that, and I was just pretty much crushing most of the most of the people around me. At that point, I also recruited the majority of my friends to come join the tennis team, just so that we have like a full roster between JV and varsity. It was fun, it was really fun, and I ended up being a number one doubles player on the team. And I played my first match in the preseason, got my first ever set won, which was pretty cool. Not gonna lie, great experience. And it's funny because it came against the same exact school that I played the preseason the year before, where I lost the 0-4, where I didn't know how to play tennis. So it was like a full circle moment for me. Um, and then we ended the season, had few wins, not a lot, nothing too crazy to brag about, but had few wins, a lot of losses. Unfortunately, our school still has not won a single game. Um, and we finished the season. Here comes the banquet, and boom, I did get an award. I got the most improved player, which was pretty nice because it showed. Was it most improved? Sorry, it was most dedicated. I was just looking at the plaque. It was most dedicated, which to me was, it goes to show that the coaches saw what I've been trying to do, which is just put in the work, put in the effort, just trying to improve myself. So now I'm a senior, I'm graduating. I was kind of bummed out because at that point I didn't know what's going to happen with me when it comes to tennis. At that point, I've completely abandoned the idea of playing soccer. I'm full into the tennis mode. Um, and I'm trying to figure out like what I'm gonna do, like what's my next step. Um, and I for a moment I thought I was never gonna play tennis again. I thought it's just gonna be like a hobby thing that I might pick up here or there. But I part of me wanted to compete, part of me wanted to learn and do more. Um, and I was pretty bummed out. So, I graduated, everything happens, and then I get a message from one of the assistant coaches who had became the head coach asking if there's anybody that wants to sign up to be an assistant coach for next year for starting with the girls team, and we'll see about the boys team. I was like, hey, I threw my hat in there. I contacted the assistant coach. I ended up becoming an assistant coach, which was pretty awesome feeling. And I joined and I was going to the community college. I thought about playing for the men's team over there, but I was like, I already committed to the whole coaching gig, so I'm just gonna stick to the coaching gig. Um, First year, we got our first win with the girls team in over, was it 18 years? Yeah, it was 18 years since the girls have gone, like, as a school, gotten our first win, which was pretty sweet. And then I transitioned into the boys, and we also got our first win in 21 years. So we finally erased like that big drought for us as a school, not having a big win, which was pretty sick. It was pretty cool because a lot of especially for the boys team, um, I've played with a lot of these players. Like I'm just recently graduated. I played with a lot of these players, and there's like an incoming group of freshmen that was pretty fun to coach. So it was a really cool experience. But nonetheless, I stayed with the coaching for about 3 years. My last season with the boys, we went undefeated in the league, 10-0. We were even seeded during the CIF playoffs for schools, which was pretty awesome. So we accomplished a lot, but around 2018, it was time for me to move on because at that point I was graduating from community college, and I had basically nobody was forcing me, but internally I had to make a decision. Do I continue with this whole coaching gig, or do I move on into something else? And that's when I stumbled upon the USTA. So, if you're not familiar with the USTA, it is short for United States Tennis Association. I stumbled upon it because I discovered that there are local tournaments happening, and it was like a new world for me because, as much as I loved coaching at high school and it was a very rewarding experience, I was still very young. At that point, I still haven't even turned 21 years old yet. And I felt like there's so much more for me to accomplish as a player than just as a coach. I thought what I had as a coach was great. I, like I said, it was a very rewarding experience. And I came in, we start coaching. And again, I can't just take the full credit myself because I was part of a system. But we came in, we took over a dead program, and when I walked out, that program was on top of the world. It was on top of the district, one of the best programs around, and it was great. But to me, it felt like I had unfinished business as a player because I never gotten the chance for myself to prove to myself that I can win individually. So I decided to play in a tournament, and I convinced one of the coaches that was there. I convinced him to be my partner, so we did doubles. We played our first tournament. We ended up playing against the number one seed at that tournament. We were up 5-2 the first set. We ended up choking it. We lost 7-5. Second set, we came back. We won 6-3. We're like, hey, you know what? Maybe we got a chance. Third set, tiebreaker. We ended up losing, unfortunately, 10-5. It was very heartbreaking, but seeing that our first ever tournament, playing against the number one seed, we took them to 3 sets. I was like, hey, that's an improvement. That's literally we're starting at a very high ground. I was like, let's just try to go up from here. Unfortunately, we did not go up from here. We end up going down in terms of the doubles, me and him. um Things were a little bit more difficult. We started running into more talented players, and we were not getting adequate coaching and adequate practice. And that point, the second tournament of that year, I decided to try out the singles because, like I said, or maybe I did not mention it, in high school, I played most of my time as doubles. And I was like, I want to venture into the singles. It sounds fun to me. So I did a double duty. I played singles and doubles. The singles was a very humbling experience that first match. Um, but hey, I took it as I'm still learning. This is only my first one as singles. We can only go up from here. The next year comes in, played in multiple tournaments. Unfortunately, got my ass handed to me in pretty much every single tournament. Um, and then I was like, hey, you know what? My issue is I'm not getting enough practice. I want to get enough practice. I want to be part of a team. And at that point, I was wondering if there are teams in tennis. Mind you, before I started playing in any of those tournaments, I did not realize that there are clubs for tennis. I thought there's just like you find a tennis court, you go there and you play. The idea of having a tennis club was intriguing to me. And so I thought about joining a tennis club. However, I did not know where to join. At that point, I'm still playing on public courts. I discovered my second year on the USTA that I can join a team. So I messaged the director and she pointed me towards a team that needed an extra player. I joined that team. We were playing in a club, and it was fun. It was great because now I have weekly practices and I have weekly matches. So it felt refreshing. It felt like I'm back to being part of a team like I was in high school. It was a great feeling. I stayed with that team for a couple of years before everybody started venturing it out. Then I joined a variation of a team, changed club a couple times, even including right now. I'm in a different club than I was when I first started playing in the team, and then after that, the second club that I joined. So it's a pretty cool experience. Now I'm saying that, and like after I joined and stopped playing in tournaments, and I've been playing in tournaments, like I said, since 2018. Um, when I first started, it's been what now? 8 years, or yeah, 2026. Yeah, it's been 8 years since I've been playing tennis at tournaments, and unfortunately, I still don't have a trophy to my name. And I credit that mostly to the level of competition here in San Diego because it is incredible how many amazing tennis players there are out there. I mean, it's mind boggling how it seems like every tournament I run into somebody new who shocks me with the way they play and their attitude on the courts. Of course, I'm not gonna lie. I do have things that I need to improve when it comes to myself, and I'm aware of it. Um, I'm aware of my issues. I'm aware of where I lack on the courts, where I can improve, where I should get better. Um, but throughout the whole journey, I've had a lot of fun meeting a lot of different players, different people. Some people I've became very close friends with, um, shared the court with, played against them. It's pretty fun. It's a great experience. It's a great way to meet people. So I'm not the best when it comes to meeting new people, but even I have to admit it's pretty fun sharing the court with somebody else and getting to know them. So if you're somebody that is extremely social, I'd say this is a great sport for you because, like I said, you just get to meet a lot of people. You get to meet different players. Whether you're part of a club, a league, a USDA team, just playing in tournaments, just going to public course, just going like the club. Like you'll just meet a lot of different people. You get to form all these cool connections, um, and it's pretty fun. I have. I mean, I haven't played against anybody professional, of course. Um, but like in my other club, I've practiced right next to a professional player right now, on the tour, which was pretty cool. Um, I knew his dad before he unfortunately passed away. Earlier this year or last year? I can't remember. Um, but yeah. Beside that, when I started playing at the USTA, you do a self rating. If you're not sure, you're just gonna answer questions. You just answer them honestly. Some people try to manipulate the system, but my advice, if you're starting, is just answer the questions honestly. It's in your best interest. The whole purpose of the USTA system, although I do have my issues with how they rank players and how they do like the whole thing, um, answer it to the best of your ability. It's in your best interest to get placed at a level where you're gonna feel comfortable. Based on how much you know tennis. Um, if you're a total beginner, if you're have a really good experience or whatever, just get placed in the right place. That way, you're not sandbagging. Although that's sometimes inevitable and it will happen. So I started off at the 3.5 level for the USDA. Stopped playing there. I unfortunately got dropped to 3.0 last year, or this year, I should say. Um, I don't know why. I don't really understand. Even though last year I've had my most wins at the 3.5 than I did the previous couple of years. And I was like, you didn't drop me the last couple of years when you should have dropped me, but you decided to drop me this year where you should not have dropped me. But anyways, um, still pretty fun. Still getting to compete at both the 3.5 and the 3.0 level. Just trying to right now, just trying to keep my head down, just work with what I have. It's not the end of the world ranking and all those like stuff does not define who I am. Of course, you know. I know I'm very inconsistent when it comes to the course. Like when things are clicking for me, like I can play really well. The issue is I can't keep my focus. I can't keep my mental sharpness for the duration of the match, and that's why it comes in spurs. And that's something that I need to work on. That's something that I'm trying to improve. I'm trying to build a solid foundation, so that way when my fastball goes down, I have something else to rely on, which is just my constant, my foundation. Uh, and maybe I do belong in the 3.0. I have no idea, but um, my goal is to obviously still win my first ever trophy in a tournament, whether that is singles or doubles, of course, ideally both, but um, still searching for that one. I did make the semifinals a couple times. That's about the furthest I've gone in a tournament. Actually, not this last tournament, but the one before it, I did go to the semifinals. I did have the longest match of my life. I think it lasted like 3 hours, just over 3 hours, around the 3 hour benchmark, and it was incredible. Like I played the whole thing and I was exhausted at the end, obviously, but credit to my opponent, for getting the job done. And yeah, this journey is not over, but you know, we still got to carry. All right, I feel like I've reached the point where I've yapped enough, and if you've made it so far to the end of this video, first of all, kudos to you because I mean, I don't know. Uh, that goes to show that you're really interested and you actually wanted to learn about my story, which I do appreciate. Um, but if you're somebody who's new and you don't know how to play tennis, take my story and let it be something that you can say, "Hey, this guy did not know. This guy did not even know what tennis was, and he's playing right now." Of course, I'm not playing professionally, and if you're somebody, if you're very young, like the sky's the limit, of course. But if you're somebody who's just trying to pick up a hobby, I think tennis is a great hobby. You can get into a lot of competitive stuff. Like I said, there's a lot of tournaments all around the year. I do actually not the last like 2 3 months. October. Sometimes there's tournaments in October, sometimes not. But usually November, December, there's nothing. But beginning of the year to like September, there's a lot of tournaments. If you don't want to play tournaments, if you just want to be part of a team, there is the USDA team, so you could just sign up for different teams, whichever one has availability there. I guarantee you, there is always a team that needs one or two more players. I guarantee you that. If you just want to join a club, just you have a social time and meet different people and just hang out with them, make new friends. That's also available. Just make sure you don't go to pickleball. Make sure you stick to tennis because pickleball is not a real sport. Tennis is a real sport. Um, but yeah, it's very easy to sign up. It's very easy to join, and it's very easy to pick up. Yeah, sure, there's a lot of nuance, and there's always going to be like levels to every single game, every single sport that you pick up. There's always going to be like levels to it, but I do think that with the consistent practice, if you keep playing against players, in my opinion, who are better than you at your level, just keep sharpening yourself, sharpen your skills. Um, you'll eventually start to make it, and you'll eventually break into the um, like all the top players, your division or your respective skill level. But yeah, that's the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe, like, comment, share the video. Um, Make sure you come back for the next video. It will be the fantasy football mock draft. I'm very excited about it. I have not recorded it, but of course, you know, it's going to be fun because I'm very excited for this football season. I'm excited for fantasy season, so that should be fun. There's going to be more content about football, and if this video does well, who knows? Maybe I'll do something similar to that. But until next time.